Hello guys. Now I was kind of planning on having Twilight Priceless be the last of the Zelda blogs, but I made an announcement that to celebrate 100 subs, I would revive them. If Territory of the Low IQs can get a 4th chapter, then so can this. And if any Zelda experts have been checking the community tab, then you'll know that this screenshot is not from Tears of the Kingdom. This of course means that this series of blogs will continue past this episode. Probably like a little treat every 1 or 2 seasons. So for better or for worse, there are going to be more of these blogs. But it's not so much the flaws I want to discuss as it is the questionable decisions. Because I have already covered Breath of the Wild before, and this game is practically identical to that. Tears of the Kingdom did solve one issue that many people had with the previous game, and that's the whole recipe book thing. Way to go on that one. But yeah, the only issues that lots of these games have are too small to really even acknowledge. But for any people that aren't too familiar with Nintendo's work that popped this game into their Switch, there would definitely be a few things that don't really make sense to them. Before we get to that though, would you guys rather exhale and ah, or try and enjoy? Guys, you will not believe I'm saying this, but probably the latter. Tears of the Kingdom might be better than Breath of the Wild. I mean, yes, Tears does not have the same level of discovery as Breath, because it's mainly the same map, and there could be things that Breath does better than Tears, but that whole crafting system they introduced and other things on top of that are just so damn good, I would take it over Minecraft any day of the week. I still can't quite say it surpasses Ocarina. In fact, I don't know if that's even possible, even for Nintendo. That may always be the peak of gaming. For the future of these Zelda Flaws blogs, I think I'm going to be mainly focusing on odd decisions more so than legitimate issues. And there may be twists along the way, just to keep the series from becoming too repetitive. There are a few minor issues I had with Tears of the Kingdom, so I'll go ahead and mention those as well. But the very day after the game was released, I posted to my community tab that it took me 5 attempts to get past that rail section on the Big Sky Island in which you start the game on. I will re-explain what all the prototypes were. So for my first attempt, I ultra-handed, this game's version of gluing, almost everything that came on that section of the island. It didn't dawn on me until later that some of the extra stuff they added was probably there as backups or something. But what we have here is 3 minecarts glued to each other, each one having a fan and the right and left ones having a crate with a hook. This thing was too wide, so I had to ditch it. I then unglued the cart from the middle, which ungluing things in this game can be a pain in the ass sometimes if you've already glued a bunch of shit together, because it basically just undoes it all. I guess that would be a complaint I have with the game, that the Ultra Hand thing could have been designed differently. Like, couldn't there be other ways of ungluing specific items but leaving everything else intact? Anyway, it's basically the same deal but with 2 minecarts, but it soon came to my realization that I would need more fan power on the left side of the contraption over the right side, because only the rail on the right was broken. So now there is a bonus fan on the left minecart, but then I realized that the hooks were connected to each other, and that wasn't going to work. For my 4th attempt, I made the minecarts unparallel with each other, but then the right hook was giving unnecessary weight to the whole mechanism. Last but certainly not least, I unglued the hook from the contraption, and that attempt was the one that finally got me over there. So that was all 5 of my attempts, and it did take a good 15 to 20 minutes to figure all that crap out. But that's fine with me, because the game is most definitely good enough to where I want to use that amount of brain energy to solve the puzzles that it has to offer. But moving on to other flaws that I have found, I guess a small nitpick would be the lack of many new areas to explore. I mean, yeah, there is also that whole underground area called the Depths to look around, in which I did not know would be in the game until I played it. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no actual shrines down there. And one of the things that got people so hyped to roam the world in the last game was finding those small dungeons scattered all over the place. And this game still has shrines, but most of them are in the Hyrule that we explored 6 years ago in Breath of the Wild. So if you were wanting to explore a whole new world the same way you did in Breath of the Wild, this game may not fill that hole that you're urging. I personally am fine with exploring this version of Hyrule a second time, because there are enough changes, improvements, and additions to make it feel fresh again. But this would probably be the last time. For the next 3D Zelda, I'd say it needs to be a whole new world entirely. And speaking of map, this is how much I uncovered so far, because some of the towers you go to unlock more sections require some sort of puzzle to access. And a few of them I cannot figure out without an outside guide, which I am trying to only limit myself to those when absolutely necessary. In Breath of the Wild, if I found a tower, all I needed to do was climb to it and the job's done. That may still be the case with many of the towers in this game. Aside from the whole climbing thing, you don't really do that anymore. But I really don't know why it couldn't be like that for all of them. Like, okay, so there's this like rainy section of the map and there's a tower in the rain with all these really sharp weeds surrounding the tower to where you cannot get in, and touching them takes damage. So any player's natural instinct when there isn't rain would be to burn these things, but because it's wet and there is rain, the rain will put out the fire. So clearly you're supposed to get creative with this sort of thing. This could just be a me thing, but I personally think that the shrines should be the ones that withhold the puzzles here and not the towers. I mean, it's kinda cool, I guess, but I don't know. I don't feel like filling out the map should take as much noggin power as the shrines that you do to increase your stats, you know what I mean? Oh, and while we're on the topic of shrines, they have a new design in this game. In fact, they may even look more cool than in Breath of the Wild. I'm telling you, they have done a lot to make this feel like a new experience, even if it is the same world. But there is this one specific shrine, I believe it's called the Tokarok Shrine, or however you say that had me a little bit confused at first, but I think I get it now. Basically, the goal of this one is to get the ball to the end, you know, basic stuff like that. But in the second section of the shrine, you come across this thing that looks like it's part of some sort of like Rube Goldberg machine or something from a science museum, you know, whack-ass funk shit. Now this section of the shrine comes with one of those big wheels, which is one of the newly added Zonai devices, in which so far I know of about 27 that are in the game. Could be more, but that's all I've found so far. But in the shrine, I really couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do with that wheel. It turns out you really don't need the wheel, because you could just ultra hand the ball to the platform and then just scooch it on up there. Any casual player would probably be thinking to themselves, why is that tool there when I don't even need it? Isn't it just a waste? Which admittedly is also what I thought when going through that shrine. But after thinking about it for a minute, this is the kind of magic that Nintendo has. They give you like multiple solutions to a puzzle. You can do it this way, or even that way. It's really up to the player to decide if they want to make the puzzle hard for themselves or easy for themselves. And that's why their games are just simply the best out there. And the same thing applies to those rails from before. The method I used to get past there wasn't the correct method, it was just a method. Even methods that you would swear would not work at all could even work. Like this, for example. Well, there you go. And the fact that we are now moving on to a new era of Zelda that allows you to do much more than you could before with this whole open world thing, this becomes even more apparent. Like before 2017, people would never have guessed that an iPad, a piece of technology, would be in a Zelda game. Like, isn't this crap supposed to take place centuries ago? But Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto have insisted that as long as it keeps the essence of Zelda, like it doesn't go too far away from what it's meant to be, then Zelda can turn into anything. And these two Switch games that we have, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they're like a whole new realm we've never seen before with the past and future mixed together, and it's awesome as hell. So it's pretty clear that all the steps forward we have taken is so much greater than the few steps back. There will never be a perfect video game, but this, my friend, is about as close as you can get, and it's definitely close enough to perfect for me. Before I go, though, one more odd decision they made that I do not have an answer to. This has to do with a new visual effect that they've added to the game. But if you fall from a great enough height and land in a body of water, there is now a small amount of rain that will pour on you. It's basically like the game is saying, "Hallelujah!" or something like that. But it's kind of strange that the same thing also happens when you're inside of a cave.
Oops.